Hey guys, it's Matt here from Seeds of Awareness. In this video, I'm going to be talking about 8 food combining rules that I've followed for about 5 or 6 years now that have had a major impact on my health and my life. And I really feel like they could also have a major impact on you in a really positive way. And if you haven't yet watched my other video titled 5 Signs of Improper Food Combining, I highly recommend watching that because it's more of an introduction. I talk more about why it's important to food combine and also the 5 symptoms that most people are experiencing that are most likely a result of improper food combining. And so in this video, I'm going to more specifically focus on the actual rules that I follow. And it's not, these rules that I'm going to give you aren't all of the rules. There's other ones and more in-depth explanations to them and the science behind them, but I'll put anything relevant in the information section. I also did a video on this about 4 years ago that I'll put in the information section. And in that, I was more like only focusing on one little bit of food combining, and it's had around about 20,000 views, and quite a few questions have come from it from various people. I have been focusing on some personal stuff the last few years, so I hadn't got around to making another video, but I really hope that this video answers a lot of your questions. So in terms of the actual rules, the first thing I want to focus on is something called tummy time. And I have a bit of paper here that this is what I explained in the first video 4 years ago. But tummy time explains how long food actually stays in your stomach. And I hope you can see that. Maybe like take a screenshot of this so that you don't have to write, so that you can have it for later use, or I'll actually put all of these in the info section. So tummy time is referring to how long food actually takes to break down in the stomach, and it's something most people don't consider at all. And so what I've got here is that water takes 0 to 10 minutes to break down. And the reason I'm explaining to you is because this is crucial to understand for food combining. Juices take about 15 to 30 minutes. Fruit takes about 30 to 60 minutes. And this is because obviously water is self-explanatory, this is absorbed really easily, but juices and fruit, the reason they're absorbed the quickest is because they contain simple carbohydrates. So what that means is that nature has already done most of the digestion for you, and we see that in the process of a banana. A banana starts off as a complex carbohydrate, which means it's much more, basically, without going into the chemistry of it, is just much more complex to break down. It's not a simple sugar. And so what that means, it's also, you wouldn't ever really eat a green banana because it would be hard to eat. It wouldn't taste very nice. So nature in the ripening process breaks down the complex carbohydrates in them and converts them into simple carbohydrates, which is when it's ready to eat. Juices, and that's why it's quicker to break down. Juices are even quicker because you've removed the fiber from the fruit. Starches, however, are complex carbohydrates. So they start taking starches like your pastas, your potatoes, and other vegetables. There's different varieties, like you've got carrots is a starch. Carrots would break down quicker than zucchini, however, which is also a starch, but zucchini has got more water in it. So anything with more water in it generally means it breaks down a bit quicker. So they take about 1 to 2 hours. Then we've got vegetable proteins. That's like your tofu, and I would include nuts and stuff like that. Other like tempeh, all those sort of vegetable proteins generally take a bit longer. Protein is a more complex molecule than is a carbohydrate, so it takes longer to break down. Then we've got animal meat, and that takes even longer. That takes around 3 to 4 hours. And I'm not sure why, but where I got my information from says that shellfish take about 4 to 8 hours to break down. Now, the reason why this is important is because all these foods need to go through, need to break down at a certain rate. And if they're not broken down, they start fermenting or start putrefying. And if you kind of imagine like putting some vegetables or meat in a small bin and put it outside on a hot, humid day and left it there for like 8-10 hours or whatever, or even a few hours, what would happen? we all know that what would happen was that they'd start to rot, they'd start to ferment, and you'd open it and it'd smell gross, and that's those smells and if you dared try tasting it, it would probably taste disgusting too, because it started to produce toxins. It started to carbohydrates ferment and proteins putrefy, and that releases toxic gases that just aren't very nice. So the stomach is also a very hot, humid, and also an acidic environment. So if foods are held up in there longer than what they're meant to be held up in before, because foods are meant to go through a process of broken down and then absorbed before there's any chance of fermentation or putrefaction. But when foods are eaten on top of foods or eaten together with other foods of a very different composition, they begin ferment. They're held up in the stomach and they begin basically fermenting. So for example, if you had vegetable proteins sitting in your stomach and you'd just eaten them, or if you'd eaten a meal of rice, vegetables and tofu, or even animal meat, and that would take in your stomach anywhere up to 4 hours or even longer to break down. And then straight afterwards, if you drank 500-600 millimeters of juice, that juice is not going to just absorb. It's going to actually sit on top of the other food and be held up the entire time this is being broken down. So what then happens is the fruit juices begin to ferment, and that's how wine is made. And wine and alcohol is made through a fermentation process, and wine is just a concentrated toxin, a concentrated poison. So you're basically producing poisons and toxins and other gases in your stomach that lead to the symptoms, the 5 symptoms that I mentioned in the other video. So this is really important. So and this ties into what I'm going to talk about next, which is the eight major food combining rules that I follow. Number one is to always wait for true hunger. Now, the reason true hunger is crucial, I should explain what true hunger is. I personally agree with a lot of researchers and nutritionists out there that there's 2 different types of hunger. There's true hunger and false hunger. And false hunger is the sort of hunger that is when we're just eating because we're bored, or eating because we want to distract ourselves, or we're addicted to a food, or we eat because we're conditioned to eat that time of day, such as breakfast at the same time, lunch at the same time, dinner at the same time. And that's very different to the body actually genuinely needing food. And true hunger is very different. It's a whole different experience. It's when you're truly hungry, genuinely hungry, and your body is saying, just get some food into me, is when you could pick up a bit of bread and eat that bread, just a bland, nothing added to it, and eat that bread and just be oh my goodness, this is the best tasting thing ever, because your body is just crying out for some calories and for some food. Whereas false hunger is when you wouldn't enjoy the bread in the same way, and you have to smother it in jam or other things just to actually enjoy it. That's probably a weird example, but another example is eating just a simple fruit, like an apple. Someone might just eat an apple and be whatever, it's just an apple. Or when you're truly hungry, that apple is a whole new experience. And the flavors, the subtle textures, everything is just you feel it deep into your core. It's a whole different level of enjoyment for your food. And that's why I'm a big fan of intermittent fasting, giving your digestive system a break every day or a few days a week. And I've done another video on intermittent fasting and how to do it, which I'll also put in the info section. Because true hunger is a sign from your body that it is really ready to eat. And the body's only ready to eat when all the processes from the previous meal have been completed. And we seem to forget that digestion is a lot more than just eating. Digestion is the breakdown of food, the absorption of that food, and the elimination of waste. But then the internal organs need to recuperate their energy, because it takes a lot of energy to break down foods, especially the modern Western diet, which is full of junk foods and full of improper combining. Places a huge tax, and your digestive organs are muscles just like your muscles on your body. And we all know you can't work out every single day without rest. Even bodybuilders or people who do work out for a living have to have rest, because without rest and without recuperating energy, you can't perform, your body can't perform as you want it to. So intermittent fasting, or giving your digestive system solid breaks, allows all of these processes to take place: digestion, absorption, and elimination. But then it also allows the energy of your internal organs, it gives them a rest, and they can actually recuperate energy, and then they're really ready to go. So when we eat when we're truly hungry, we also digest our food way better, because your organs are full of energy, they're full of vigor, they're ready to go. When you eat with false hunger and you need to smash or apply a lot of condiments or sweet stuff just to actually get enjoyment from your food, that's a sign that you're not truly hungry, and that's a sign that you're probably not going to digest that food very well. And generally when we add a lot of stuff, that means we're not going to be combining well either, which adds another strain. So waiting for true hunger, and you'll know when you're truly hungry. You'll definitely know. Number 2 is never drink during a meal. And when I say never, I'm not saying never like it's going to kill you if you do it. Like, I do it every now and then. I'm just saying, like, if you follow these more regularly than you don't, you're going to get great results. It's when we break these rules every single meal is when problems occur. Like, the body is resilient. You can break them every now and then and it'll be fine. But it's just we do it all the time, and the body can only handle so much abuse. The reason not to drink with a meal is because, in my experience, if you drink with it, especially juices, it ferments, and it's bad combining because of the tummy time thing. Same with alcohol. Alcohol changes the chemistry makeup of the stomach. Like, I personally think that the stomach has to be a certain, digestion always comes back to chemistry. It has to be a certain pH level to break down certain foods properly. Alcohol is a very strong acidic pH level, so it disrupts the balance in the stomach. Plus, liquids can wash away the gastric juices that are there trying to break down the food, and along with the gastric juices and bile, enzymes and stuff can be washed away as well. So I recommend against drinking, especially against drinking like whilst you're eating. Like, maybe if you waited half an hour or whatever, depending on the food you had, you'd be fine. But I just recommend not having liquids, and having liquids like 20-30 minutes before you're going to eat. Number 3, and this ties into the tummy time thing, is to always have fruit only on an empty stomach. Fruit being already a simple sugar, because nature has broken down the starches, the complex carbs, into simple sugars. It is ready basically to be absorbed. It's ready to go. It doesn't, because whereas starches and pastas and rices and potatoes and veggies, your body has to break them down into simple carbs before it can absorb them. Whereas fruit, it's ready to go. So it doesn't want to be held up in the stomach very long at all. But if there's any food from a previous meal, it will get held up. And this just ties back into the tummy time if you want another look. Because I do understand, like, from my experience showing this to people, it takes, because we've never been really shown these things, it takes a long time to get your head around it. So yeah, the tummy time, you see the juices 15 to 30 minutes, fruit 30 to 60 minutes. And needs to be, they break down quick, and they need to be eaten on an empty stomach. The slowest fruits to break down would be your bananas, because they're just like less water, more dense. The quickest fruits to break down would be your watermelons, oranges, like your really juicy fruits. They'll break down super quick, like 15 to 30 minutes. The next one, no carbs with protein. Now, this is the one that people really like, because, you know, our whole Western diet is built around this. But unfortunately, like, the nature didn't kind of endow us with the ability to provide the perfect environment in the stomach to break down such conflicting foods. Carbohydrates and proteins are very, very different molecules, and the the body has limits. I mentioned in the other video that if you had a Venus flytrap, which grabs a plant that grabs flies and digests them while they're alive, pretty gruesome. But if you chucked that, like flies are mostly made of protein, and so the Venus flytrap has got gastric juices and enzymes specifically designed to digest that fly. But if you chucked corn and something carbohydrate in with that fly, the Venus flytrap wouldn't be able to break them both down, because the carbohydrate requires a much different environment, much different enzymes and different pH level than proteins do. So combined together, unless you've got some magical stomach that can like separate them into two different compartments and digest them separately and then absorb it, or humans don't have that, unfortunately. So no carbs with protein, and that means all of our favorite meals. That means meat, like burgers, meat and bread. It means meat and pasta. It means meat and rice. All of these things. And so I understand that might really make people cringe and make people be like, Jesus, like, what am I meant to eat? Like, this is like the basis of my diet. If you're not getting any issues, don't worry about it. But if you're watching this because you're getting issues, well, I hate to say it, but something needs to change. You need to start aligning more with the laws of nature. And you've got to remember that bread is a pretty recent invention by man. Like we've only been producing foods like that like for 5,000 or 10,000 years, and same with pastas and rices. That might seem like a long time for you, but in terms of our evolutionary, we've been evolving on this planet like for millions of years, and there's arguments over how long modern humans have been here, but at least like a few 100,000 years. Some argue like, much, much longer than that. So that's a long time of your digestive system adapting and evolving in an environment where there was no bread, no rice, no anything. So if you caught an animal and ate meat, you're not eating it with bread. So I know it sounds crazy and very limiting, but it's not what I believe we're actually designed to do. So if I was having protein like your meats or whatever, I would be only just having it with salads, because green leafy vegetables, your lettuce, your spinaches, or other vegetables like kale and other vegetables, there's some vegetables that are less starchy, like your zucchinis and maybe even carrots, but they're pretty starchy. These could combine just fine with meat. But I think that if you tried this out for a few weeks and then went back to something like a meat and bread, I think you'd find it doesn't digest well at all. In terms of having carbohydrates like your rice and pastas and potatoes, I would just have them with vegetables. And I think you'll find that you digest things much, much better. The number 5 is no simple carbohydrates with complex carbohydrates. What that means is like your jams and stuff on top of bread. It means fruit with bread, fruit with any sort of carbohydrate, or even condiments. A lot of condiments have sugar in it. So when you put condiments or sauces, a lot of sauces have sugar in it, which is a simple carbohydrate. So when you put sauces on top of your potatoes or your rices, what that's doing is it's coming back to this tummy time. You're adding a sugar, a simple carbohydrate that is very quick to break down, with a starch which takes a few hours to break down, and so you're going to get fermentation. It's just the way it goes. Number 6 is minimal to no condiments, and you're once again like you're going to think this is so limiting, but all of these things, condiments, are just a modern invention. The amount of condiments we have in the supermarket, from your mustards to your sauces, salts and peppers, all these sort of things, we haven't had that for a long time in the human timeline. So the problem with condiments is that they're very acidic. Generally like your mustards, or generally like your sauces, or sweet chili sauce or whatever, and tomato sauces and barbecue sauce, they come with sugar in it, they come with other acids, and they also completely distort the flavor. So your body, when you're eating food, when you're chewing it, that's when your body's getting the signals of what type of food you're eating, so it can then prepare the optimum environment in the stomach to break that food down. But when you're chewing a food that's been mixed with a condiment, it completely masks the taste and disguises it and tricks your body. So your body doesn't really know what sort of food you're eating. Like you could be eating a carbohydrate like rice or potato or vegetables, which need a lot of amylase enzymes in your saliva to encapsulate it whilst you're chewing it. And that's why when you chew those foods, you produce a lot of saliva, because the starch digestion process begins in the mouth. But if you're eating it with all these sauces, your body doesn't even know you're eating a starch. So less digestion happens in the mouth, and it affects what goes on down there. So I also know sweet fruits with citrus fruits. So that means like, and most people know this instinctively, like no bananas with oranges or lemon or something like that. Like they wouldn't taste that nice together anyway. But this just comes down to chemistry. Like fruit, like sweet fruits like bananas require more alkaline environments in the mouth to break down. But then an orange or a pineapple or a lemon completely eradicates any alkalinity in the mouth and creates a citrus, acidic environment in the mouth, which affects the digestion of the other fruits. So, but a lot of people do this in smoothies though, and I think it can really affect the digestion in smoothies. And the number 8 is never eat when stressed. And that's simply because stress has been well known to affect digestion. It basically stops, like when your body's in a stress state, it stops the body's ability from being able to produce the right amount of enzymes, produce the right amount of gastric juices, and that really affects, and also it takes up a lot of energy, so your organs have less energy. So if you're in a state of stress, I just recommend not eating, and really also, that's the other thing, be mindful when you're eating. Like, you know, a good attitude, a nice relaxed body, and also gratitude for your food can impact digestion in a really positive way. So if you're thinking, what the hell do you eat during the day? Well, you know, that's a whole nother topic. Like, you might think this is very limiting, but it's only very limiting. These laws are only very limiting because we're so conditioned to eat for taste. We're so conditioned to eat for the pleasure of eating, whereas the pleasure should come from the satiation that you get from food and the feelings that you get after the food. So when you start to value the pleasure of feeling great after a meal and absorbing more nutrients and not having gassing and bloating, not having digestive problems, and not having depleted hair, skin, and nails, then you're going to enjoy eating simple foods, just like every other animal does in nature. You're going to enjoy eating simple foods much more. And it really just comes down to how much you prioritize health. And for those people who think this is way too limiting and wouldn't be able to do it, you know, you might have to look at like what role is food actually playing in your life? Are you using it as a way to suppress emotions? Are you using it as a way to, is it an addiction that you're not recognizing? And all these things come down to deeper things within ourselves that we're kind of avoiding and using food to avoid, just like people use drugs to numb themselves. But that's a whole nother topic. But in terms of what foods I eat in a day, I wrote about that extensively in this book, 365 Days of Wholeness, which I wrote back in 2015 with my friend Tegan Steele, who cured her IBS and her mum's Crohn's disease through through stuff like proper food combining. So I hope this has been informative. I really understand if there's any skepticism. This took me a few years to get my head around, but I'm so glad that I've applied it in my life. I feel much better. I feel much stronger. I don't have any digestive issues anymore. My nails and hair and everything are much stronger and more vigorous. And yeah, it's like eating's a whole new experience. So for those who, you know, are looking to apply it, I wish you good luck. Anything I think is relevant, I'm going to put in the info section, but also like nothing can replace just giving it a go yourself, just trying it out for a few weeks. And a lot of people get caught up in the whole, am I doing this properly? Am I doing that properly? Blah, 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 blah. Your body, we're so disconnected from our body that we forget that our body will tell you how you feel after a meal There's a lot of subtle sensations that your body's communicating to you that if you just listen to it, it will guide you into what's ideal for you. And these are just guidelines. Everyone is unique in terms of what they can handle. So trust yourself, trust your inner guidance. You don't need someone externally telling you what to do. Your body's guiding you in the right direction, but we're very disconnected from that. So I hope that this has helped. And please subscribe to our channel if you want to see more videos like this. Please share it if you think it's been informative, and please fire away with any questions. I'll do my best to answer them, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.